Very good morning. Welcome to Britain's Newsroom, 9:36. Andrew and Bev with you until midday. So lots of the stories that are in the news agenda this morning are basically flying out of America.
Amazing.
Because of the changes that Trump is making. A lot of it, actually, could be put under the heading of more transparency, more openness, less corruption. And one area of American life which has been hidden for years under the kind of title of possible corruption and dishonesty is the death, of course, of former American President John F. Kennedy.
So they've declassified 60,000 pages of documents relating to the death of JFK rather recently. So as we speak, we've got somebody pouring through them because, as you know, Lee Harvey Oswald was the so-called gunman who was an extraordinarily accurate gunman who got the president in the front of the head, back of the head, and was mysteriously murdered on live television 2 days later.
Yeah. It released some documents.
Yeah, it did.
And very much implicated the CIA in this. But what you might call the deep state, the raw bureaucratic underbelly of America, what did they not want to be exposed? So many questions.
And, of course, some people think, because Jackie Kennedy, if you remember, when Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in as President of the United States on Air Force One, she kept her outfit on, complete with the blood stains, iconic image, and that's because she hated Lyndon B. Johnson and suspected him of ordering the assassination of her husband. All of this will be explored in these pages, which I think is fascinating.
So as we speak, of course, there are very committed journalists who are combing through the details of this, and we will try and bring you anything that we hear as the morning goes on. There have been
you think how many documentaries, how many TV programmes, the great film that came out years ago. Amazing. Who killed JFK?
Over 2,000 PDF documents, 63,000 pages on the National Archives website. And, of course, this is more than 60 years after the president was shot and killed in Dallas. But you also think, well, if there really was a smoking gun, no pun intended, in these papers, surely that would have been destroyed by somebody before now. And what would the implications be? What could the implications be? Would anybody still be alive now that was involved in that?
And the Warren Commission that investigated it concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald, who was 24, acted alone. I've never believed it. No,
never believed it. And remember, the phrase conspiracy theorist, which has become very popular in the last 5 years, was basically kind of... There's two schools of thought. Either it was already something that was around since the 19th century and actually the CIA decided to revive that phrase, but also the idea that the CIA came up with that phrase because it would silence any dissenters. Anybody that went, hang on a minute, you sure that's what happened? You're just a conspiracy theorist. Still happens today, that.
And of course, Jack Ruby shooting him dead 2 days after the assassination meant he was never put on in the witness box, he was never tried, so we would never know what was his motivation and was he acting on his own. Anyway, this will tell us more. Now, you would have heard in GB News in the last 24 hours, the Work and Pensions Secretary has unveiled, finally, what they regard as a crackdown on disability benefits aimed at saving £5 billion a year by 2030.
£5 billion a year by 2030. It's not that much, is it?
It's peanuts.
It's nothing. So this overhaul...
But it's a lot if you are disabled and you're going to have your benefits cut.
Exactly. Well, this overhaul includes restructuring access to a major disability benefit, blocking young people from claiming sickness benefit until the age of 22.
Let's speak to the crossbench peer and one of our...
Sit down with Tanny and...
And if you look around the House of Commons, where all these decisions are made, how many MPs are disabled? I think there's one. And I can, in all the years I've been working at Parliament, been in and out of the House of Commons since 1988, I can recall one wheelchair-bound MP in that whole time.
And you're absolutely right, and what incenses me is the number of people who will be saying to their children, right, you've got ADHD, you've got autism, you've got this, right, let's get online, let's claim you some money. Right, brilliant, we've got a few £100 a month for that. And then you've got someone in a wheelchair who needs the help.
Yeah, and tens of thousands of people are getting payments, not necessarily all of it. It goes up to £9,500 a year because they're obese. I'm sorry, that's not what the benefit system should be for.
That's controversial. Let us know your thoughts on that. gbnews.com/your say.
Up next, Prince Harry's visa application has been released, but with lots of elements redacted. In other words, they've covered it up. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, who isn't, here's the forecast for some of our top
9:51, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. As we said at the start of the show, the JFK assassination files were released by America overnight UK time. We will be bringing you any revelations from those as and when we get them.
One, we do know that the Secret Service were warning that he was a serious risk of assassination in August and he was murdered in November. That's interesting.
Possibly by the Secret Service.
Yeah, by the Secret Service, exactly. Now, Prince Harry's visa documents have finally been made public after a legal battle because did he lie about his drug taking?
But they've been heavily redacted over fears of unwanted media attention. You heard that right. We're joined by... Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. Now, let's see what you've been... No, we're not going to do this because this John F. Kennedy story is too big this morning. Forgive me, we will get to your messages at some point, but we want to speak to an expert on this straight away because, of course, these John F. Kennedy remaining assassination files have been released by the Trump administration overnight.
They revealed that the Secret Service has been warned Kennedy...
OK, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you.
Right, the Work and Pension Secretary has unveiled a crackdown on disability benefits aimed at saving the taxpayer £5 billion a year by 2030.
A lot of it centres on restructuring access to a major disability benefit, which is the personal independence plan, and blocking young people from claiming sickness benefit until they're 22.
So we're joined now by the Senior Fellow at Policy Exchange, John Ond. Right, still to come this morning, we want to hear from you if you're impacted by these benefit cuts. You can email us, actually, on this topic. We are listening to you on this channel, gbviews@gbnews.uk. And also, of course, you can chat with me and Andrew on gbnews.com/your say. Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. About pharmacies, James says, I fully support the brilliant pharmacies, 100%.
Yeah.
They do so much more and are continually being taken advantage of by this government and the one before that. The utterly corrupt and utterly bent NHS, they were the only brave people, this is pharmacists, that opened throughout COVID while lazy work-shy GPs and their surgeries had padlocks on them for months. And I will put a shout-out to Sue at Busby's in Chiswick, to who I've been to. Every child sniffle, every headache, everything. Use your pharmacies, ladies and gentlemen.
Up next, we have more bombshell revelations in those newly released JFK files. Don't miss it.
Newsroom. Right, we're going to go to in fact, let's have a look at some of your messages at home. I've been dying to get to these, and Christopher Hope's waiting for us, but you are as important as Christopher Hope, dear viewers. Don't tell Christopher Hope I said that.
And listeners.
And listeners, yes, of course. Now then, John says, I've been trying to find Liz Kendall in Leicester. I can't find out where she's claiming this
She's a Leicester MP.
£4,000 heating allowance from when she's a multi-millionaire. Unfettered migration is not just cheap labour, says Janet. Morning, Janet. It's a huge drain on all our services, benefits and housing and prisons.
And NHS.
And do you know what's brilliant, Andrew, is that we are now being allowed to have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
That is in no small part thanks to GB News and thanks to the likes of JD Vance, who are saying what let's just say those who've been powerless for years haven't been able to say when they've seen their high street change beyond all recognition.
Nigel Farage has been saying stuff about the impact of immigration on this country.
And became public enemy number one for doing so, and has lived on literally having security for having been talking about that before the rest of the world was catching up. Let's have a look. Raymond says, regarding the latest bank closures, the banks are destroying the infrastructure of our nation. Bailout costs the country billions. Every time they close a bank, the government should send a few executives to jail.
I think that's a bit harsh, but I get the point. They did get a lot of money during COVID, and they have a duty. They are a community service bank.
Yeah.
They've closed... near where I live, there used to be 4 banks. They've all gone. Yeah. All of them.
Now, Tim is a bit fed up with you, Andrew, for saying that you shouldn't get PIP if you're overweight.
My question is, should you getting PIP if you're obese?
It says, let him come. If you are getting PIP because you are in pain and you can't move about, let him come and take my 37 tablets a day.
And I'm sure some people will be entitled to it, but I think some people use it as an excuse. My problem with the benefit system, it shouldn't become a lifestyle. It should be there as a...
safety net.
Exactly that. And for some people, the benefit system has become a lifestyle. That is an undeniable truth. How have we gone from 2.1 million people on PIP before COVID to currently 3.6 million, and it's going to go up even higher, she said. It's going to be over 4 million, said the Welfare Secretary.
You know why?
In a matter of months.
As well, you're right, because lockdown was a brilliant education for people who'd never taken money from the
Absolutely
state.
right.
They wouldn't have even crossed their minds. But because
Yeah, how much do you want?
Eat out to help out. Here's your furlough. Here's your loan, which, frankly, you can probably fraud us from and we'll never get it back, which is what happened to £5 billion. In fact, that's a really good point. There's £5 billion of government furlough and business loans which were given out during that period of time, which have never been traced back. A lot of it went over to Eastern Europe. There were people who'd set up a business here. They'd get their £100,000 business loan, support loan, 50,000 I think they were each. So they set up 2 companies and then they'd hot-foot it back to Poland and across to Eastern Europe. We can never get that money back. And what we're saving on the bill? No. £5 billion.
I know somebody has got a tiny little fishing boat in Lymington who told me after furlough and all the loans, the number of boats, new boats that are pitched up in that port dock.
It was
all being taken out of the COVID money.
It was an absolute racket.
They didn't even build the boats here. They were blooming imports as well.
I know. I know. So
we never got that money back.
No, we didn't. So the John F. Kennedy assassination files have been released by the Trump administration after a long wait.
So the Secret Service...
Christopher Hope about this. Chris, welcome back. So we are with you until midday, of course, and it is PMQs today. So keep your questions coming for Gloria and... Christopher Hope, is it today or is it Tom?
And I'll tell you, I know what my question would be.
Tom Howard.
Does the Prime Minister agree with J.D. Vance?
He probably doesn't even know who J.D. Vance is. He'll have to be reminded who he is, won't he? Of course, talking about the...
About the fact that this country's productivity and poverty levels have been made worse by mass migration. He's absolutely right. So... there's all the other issues.
Now, Christians across the world are, of course, observing Lent. We're bringing you daily reflections from ministers around the UK. So here's today's message. Sit back and enjoy. Finally being made public after a legal battle. But they've been heavily redacted over fears of unwanted media reaction. We're joined now by editor of Majesty magazine. Her married name, of course, is Mountbatten Windsor. Yeah. That's her married name. And she must know that. She must know that. There's a marriage certificate which she'd have signed. But do you think they're right, though, that this had to be redacted because newspapers like yours would have given him such a hard time? Well, we know more than we did about what he wrote in his book. Yeah. Where he detailed his drug taking. Yeah, true. A lot of it, too. Yeah. Right, up next, we're off to the home of the Mini Cooper Cowley in Oxford today. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with all the build-up. Welcome back to PMQs. Today we're just looking at some of your questions coming in here. Here we go. This one caught my eye. Dubbing Needle, I presume it's not your real name, said, what is the purpose of Prime Minister's questions when it's a staged question and answer exercise? So many of the questions from the Prime